Okay, hi everybody. This is 7.1 Motivation Theories. The objectives, according to the College Board, that we're going to focus on today are identifying and applying the basic motivational concepts to understand behavior of humans and other animals, discussing biological underpinnings of motivation, including needs and drives and homeostasis, and comparing and contrasting motivational theories, drive reduction theory, arousal theory, general adaptation theory, including the strengths and weaknesses of each one. So first we take a look at what is motivation really, right? Like why did we have September 11th? Why did somebody bomb Oklahoma City? Why do serial killers murder? So what's the motivation behind this? And this is essentially what investigators and psychologists try to figure out is why is somebody doing this? Why would somebody want to do something so horrible? They're trying to figure out the behavior that's causing this to happen. That's what they're looking for. Motivation is defined as a need or desire that energizes behavior and directs it towards a goal. A fun little, some people need more motivation than others. An example of motivation and what might motivate somebody would be Aaron Ralston. You guys might know him. This happened a few years ago, but essentially he was rock climbing and his arm got pinned. You can see the picture down there in the bottom left-hand corner, and he literally cut his own arm off in order to free himself. There is a short film clip if you want to see information or a little bit more about that on the Canvas page. But, you know, it's things like this, like the need for survival that can drive our motivation. Instinct can also drive motivation. Instinct is known as a complex, inherited, and unlearned behavior that is rigidly patterned throughout a species. So in other words, it's something that you are born with. It's unlearned. It happens naturally. So for example, imprinting with animals or salmon swimming up the river to go spawn. Another example would be the rooting reflex in sucking for humans. It's hard to necessarily identify and nail down instincts and label them because technically there's over 10,000, and you could probably argue there's even more than that, and instincts that drive our behaviors. Now, drive. Drive is different than instinct. Drive is an aroused tension that's created by an internal imbalance. So it prompts you as a person to do something to restore that balance. So an instinct is something that happens automatically. A drive is something a little bit more thought-provoking in the fact that you are doing something to attempt to resolve some sort of imbalance. Example, you might be hungry. You missed breakfast, you woke up late, so you're starving. Skipping breakfast creates an internal physiological need for food, which leads to hunger, a psychological drive. So a physical drive leads to your psychological drive. The drive to eat and need for food is gone once you've eaten lunch, and this is what we call drive reduction theory, which we're going to go into a little bit more here in a moment. The drive reduction theory is an idea that you have a psychological need and that creates a tension or arousal that motivates you to satisfy that need. The physiological aim of drive reduction is what we call homeostasis. We're going to talk about homeostasis here in a second. Get in my belly. Okay, drive reduction theory. So you need something, you need food or water. So it drives you for hunger or thirst. And then that creates drive reducing behaviors, eating or drinking. So this is your physiological, this is your psychological, and then this is what you end up doing. Because you're trying to reach homeostasis. Homeostasis is this idea that you are at a balanced state. So, for example, your body temperature would be at a balanced state. we see this with hunger, especially because a lot of times your blood sugars can spike or lower. So that may make you want to be at a constant state. This is an example of homeostasis and how it happens in your body. So we're using body temperature as an example, but you could use this with hunger or, any other drive that you have. So normal body temperature. You dive into a cold swimming pool or go to the city of Chicago because it's freezing there right now. So your body temperature decreases, which causes two things to happen. One, you shiver, and two, your blood vessels contract. And by doing those two things, it can help bring your body temperature back to normal. Whoops, sorry, wrong direction. Second example, you jog 2 miles. So now your body temperature increases. You're hot. So two things happen. You sweat, you perspire, and your blood vessels dilate. They get a little bit bigger. And this is an effort to try to return your body temperature back to normal. So this would be an example of homeostasis happening without you having to do anything about it. Your body's just doing that automatically. Another example of what could drive us or what could motivate us. So Friday night, you guys are at a fast food restaurant, and you have 3 friends who are all taking the same college entrance exam. So let's say the SAT in the morning. You know that they're all about the same intelligence level. They have the same knowledge bases, they take the same classes, but they have different approaches to what they're going to do in the morning. So you have a first friend who says, I don't really care about this. I'm going to go to a trade school. I'm only taking the test because my parents want me to. Can I have some of your french fries? Your friend B, I want to do well, but if I screw up on this test, it's not going to permanently ruin me. I'll give it my best shot. Where's the ketchup? And then finally, your last friend. It's all on the line tomorrow. If I don't get a good score, it will change my life forever. I'm so nervous, I can't eat. That's what we call the Yerkes-Dodson law. The theory that a degree of psychological arousal helps performance, but only up to a certain point. It means that you have to have an optimal level of arousal that depends on the difficulty of the task. What that means is that if you are too hyped and the task isn't that difficult, you're probably not going to do as well because you're just too stimulated. Versus if you're too relaxed and it's a more high-stress situation, again, may not do very well. You kind of want to have the right level of arousal for however difficult that task is. Each person is going to have theirs a little bit different, right? Everybody's a little bit different on their level of stimulation that they need. And so that may look different from one person to another person. So it's kind of like the Goldilocks theory, not too hot, not too cold, just right. So according to Yerkes-Dodson, friend B would perform the best. Friend B went in with a positive attitude. They don't have too much stimulation because too much or too little arousal can decrease performance. So being too stressed out can actually decrease your performance. Friend A is a little too low, and friend C is way overstimulated. So, cool little chart here, which I want you guys to really focus on because you guys didn't do well on the chart question for your exam. So, performance level, something low task like a regular everyday class assignment versus something high task like the SAT. Low arousal versus high arousal, really stressed. So, if it's something difficult, you can see that the arousal level, in order for you to perform at your absolute best, needs to be actually somewhere on like the lower end, right? You don't want it too high or else you're not going to be able to focus. Versus something that is on an easy task, you actually might need a little bit of a higher arousal level to keep yourself a little bit more focused because it is easier. Just a little time to think about what motivates you. For some people, it might be an incentive, where our needs push. Incentives, positive or negative stimulus, pull us in reducing our drives. So what we just got done talking about was when our needs push us to do something, right? Like we're hungry, so we make a decision to go eat instead of go to class or whatever it might be. Now, an incentive is something that's going to pull us to do something. So we got the little cartoon here. No one would create without monetary incentives, meaning money. Nonsense. People create for all kinds of reasons. And then the next person said, who paid you to say that? This idea of you're only motivated by money or incentives. Extrinsic motivation would be one example of this. And this is an idea to do better because of something in the, some outside force, right? Getting a good grade, knowing that you are getting some sort of a reward for whatever it is you're doing. Problem is, though, that we have seen is that it's hard to maintain that. If you're only motivated by something extrinsically, you're probably not going to maintain that, and that's probably going to fade after that's removed. An example of studying. Notice how they put dine at the end of this word. I know you guys don't feel that way, right? Intrinsic motivation is an desire to perform better because it's something for yourself. It's something that you believe in. And what we see is if you're motivated intrinsically, you tend to have a higher achievement level than extrinsic motivation. So how do you develop motivation? Well, one, you can associate high achievement with positive emotions. So think positively when you do well, be proud of yourself when you do well. That's one way to do it. Connect your achievement with your efforts. When you do well, realize that you did well because you worked hard and you deserve it. And that was something that you deserve to do. And also raise your expectations for yourself within a realistic setting, right? You don't want to set anything to the point where you're going to become frustrated and disillusioned, but, you know, maybe you want to raise your test scores by a point or two, or maybe you want to be a little bit more organized, whatever it may be. Over-justification. If you externally reward somebody too much, they could intentionally lose their intrinsic desire for doing it. For example, some of the athletes and how much they get paid. Do they do it because they actually love the game, or are they doing it because they're getting paid an insane amount of money? Focusing on motivation, Maslow. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He was a psychologist. He was humanistic. Remember, humanistics, happy hippies. They're all about development and how you develop as a person. He said that you kind of had some needs that are priorities over other needs. And he did this by setting up what we call a hierarchy or a pyramid. And he says that by doing this process, it allows us to make sure that the lower needs are satisfied before our higher needs are. And this is the chart. So essentially it starts off with the basic needs, essentially to survive, right? You need to be hungry, or you need to satisfy your hunger, your thirst. Also safety can be in there. Safety is also in the next one, where you need to feel safe, secure, and stable. You'd probably get some argument on this, whether or not safety would be a total different one than physiological needs. And you could use the Harlow's argument for that. Belongingness and love needs. People need to feel like they're accepted. They need to avoid loneliness and alienation. Above that is esteem, your need for self-esteem, achievement, feeling like you're competent or independent, that you get some sort of respect from others. And then finally, self-actualization, which is the highest level. And this is where you're living up to your own fullest potential and your unique potential. Self-actualization is the highest need, and it's all about living up to your highest potential. You're going to want to know this. It is definitely going to come up. Social motivation. We're almost done, promise. Benefits of belonging. And so again, we talked about this a little bit with Maslow, but there is something to be said about feeling like you belong. We have found that social bonds boosted our early ancestors' chances of survival because they had each other. That was important. Also, cooperation enhanced survival. 6 hands are better than 2 hands. The need to belong colors our thoughts and emotions. Again, this idea of it helps fulfill the need that we have. And this got cut off. I am sorry, you guys. But essentially, do you have close friends that you can share your thoughts with and your feelings with? Or be silly like this. Social behavior. So we aim to increase our feelings of belonging. We work about gaining acceptance. We monitor behaviors such as style, social influences. And the reason why we do this is because in our brain, it's actually wired where we get rewards within our brain. Triggers the reward sensations because of the feeling to belong. And there's pain with being shut out. You feel ostracized, you feel solitary, you feel alone, ignored. We see this at take it to a whole different level in the idea of the internet with things like social media. There's a new name for it, cyberstressism, where this idea of being unfriended or left out socially because of something on social media. So funny meme, you unfollowed me, but did I die? And just the concept of how much social media has kind of taken over who we think we are. And that is it.